Yeah, it's just all under the guise of our storage your legacy. Just the
Yeah, right,
overarching company.
right. What's going on, everyone? Thanks again for tuning in to Our Stories, Your Legacy. And we're back with another Real Talk Fire Round episode. And just like as a reminder from previous episodes, our Fire Round episodes are our topics of the day, our topic of the week, whatever is hot and trending, typically related to COVID and the pandemic, and, we're not going to go into the discussion or the biological, political stuff of that, but it's just one of the things is for our newer viewers, if you're listening now, at this point in time, it's one of those things where we started our podcast getting together via Zoom and having conversations, thoughtful conversations ever since the pandemic first started back in March 2020. And until we stop hearing news about it all, we consider us still being in the pandemic, right? So going forward to today's episode, here's the introduction to it. So at some point in time, it seems like we all start to collect things that we find interesting. Maybe as kids, you would collect cards, you would collect rocks, maybe. And as adults, we continue that urge to want to collect things. It doesn't have to make sense to others as long as we enjoy it. From large and expensive items, right, to cars, to watches, to any other big ticket item, or to just free things we find already disposed of on the ground. Overall, why do we collect? So in this episode, we're going to do a quick little exploration into our personal psyche, basically why we collect what we collect personally, right? We can't speak on for others, and what emotions it brings to us. And so some of those questions of the day goes, what are some of our favorite things to collect? What are we collecting now? And what did we used to collect when we were kids? And lastly, what is it about these items that kind of makes us tick, that makes us want to hold and own them, right? So as always, before we begin, we're going to do a quick check-in around the room and see who is with us on this episode today. Of course, you hear me talking, and then across the room from me, or across the virtual room from me, my brother, Tyler. How's it going with you, man?
Going well. Just another Monday, I guess you could say. Things are starting to pick back up, so it's a little bit more busy, I feel like, lately. I feel like I've been nonstop go for the last 3 or 4 weeks now. So I'm tired, a little tired. I should have had a cup of coffee or something before we hopped onto this, but yeah, I mean, otherwise good. I don't have too much to complain about. It's starting to get up to the mid 80s again in Washington. So,
Yeah.
enjoying it as much as we can anyways.
Right. No, I love it here too. It's definitely not that hot streak like we had, maybe about 3 some weeks ago, but this is nice and pleasant. So looking forward to the rest of summer and seeing what, one day at a time, right? Seeing what each day brings, from our micro world to the macro with news and stuff, so see how it all pans out. Cool, man. Always love having you on. Always love vibing together. So let's jump right into it. All right, so Tyler, I'm gonna throw this question at you, and then we'll answer it together. But first question: what are some of your favorite things to collect currently? And then, what about when you were a kid? So, and are you still collecting it now, or what is this? Reminisce a little bit about what are things that you used to collect when you were younger compared to now.
For sure, I would say that the biggest collection of things that I do now are more so Funko Pops, as you can see behind me over here on the shelf here. You got one here of myself. Some of these, there's a shelf that's behind my screen. For those who are watching the video, behind my screen, there's some on a bookshelf as well. And that's kind of it's really the only thing that I kind of collect at the moment. And I don't know if that's because of of the pandemic or just me getting a little bit older and just maybe not collecting as many things as I used to. Um, I would say the things that I gravitate more towards right now as an adult um, are, I would say, Funko Pops. That's something that I started who knows how long ago at this point. But it's the thing that keeps going. I would say, like, when I travel, I usually get a magnet of a place I've been to or a shot glass just to kind of remind myself of the places I've been to. And it's kind of a nice story. Those things kind of obviously have a story behind them. So, if someone's over for a drink or something and they were like, oh, Pittsburgh? Are you a Pittsburgh fan? I'm like, oh, no, just, I visited there and can reminisce about a story and experience and kind of share that with them, which, is kind of what OSYL is all about anyways, is just sharing our stories and stuff. And like the magnets are kind of cool just so people can see like where you've been or where maybe someone who gifted you a magnet has been, kind of thing. And then I'd say maybe the other thing that I kind of collect, but not necessarily collect, I don't know, would be like bobbleheads, or I mean, I guess that would fall into the same situation as like Funko Pops, but like usually like stadium giveaways from like, the Mariners baseball team here in Seattle, or like any of the sporting events and stuff. So just stuff they give away at games, stuff that I usually end up with. And I'm like, but part of me is like, I don't know what to do with it other than have it just sit on a shelf. Typically with that kind of stuff, I usually put it away in a storage unit or garage of some sort. So yeah, so there's that. Yeah, just trying to think of like the other stuff that I kind of collect as an adult. I would say jerseys, but I wouldn't say like I go out and collect every jersey possible: soccer jersey, football jersey, baseball jersey. I feel like those are definitely more of something that you collect over time. Your favorite player, you get your favorite player and then they end up leaving or retiring or whatever that might be. And then you got to go get a new jersey, but then you don't want to throw away the other jersey. So you keep it and it's in your closet, or you frame it and you hang it up, whatever that might be. So, I mean, over the years, I've amassed a collection of sports jerseys, whether that be the Seahawks or the Sounders or the Mariners or, Chelsea FC and that kind of stuff, and different soccer teams, and some of the teams that I follow and enjoy. So stuff like that. Now, I think compared to what I collected when I was younger, as a kid, I don't necessarily collect as much. There is some nostalgia. There are certain things that might come out now that I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome. That I might go buy a physical copy of, or a physical, whatever the physical condition of the item, such as like, just thinking back to a kid, like Pokemon cards. Obviously, that was a big thing when I was growing up in the early 2000s, and they've kind of hit a resurgence lately in the last year during the pandemic. I think people just got bored and people started buying all these collector's editions, opening them, getting that like really, that anxious feeling of opening them, hoping for a rare card in there. Because that's the crazy thing. Like some of those cards, if they rank at PSA 10, mint condition and stuff, that first edition holographic Charizard is still worth, thousands of dollars, which is crazy to think about. So I think there was a big hype around that during the pandemic. So it's kind of crazy to see stores like, Target or Fred Meyer up here anyways, those stores that are nationwide at this point, being very like, sorry, we don't sell Pokemon cards, or we don't put them out on the open anymore because people are crazy. So it's kind of a big cycle. It's how it was when it first started. And now it's gone in complete, circle. So it's kind of cool and funny to see. But I mean, we've talked about that many times before, that history repeats itself. So there's that. So, things like that I collected as a kid. I used to collect bottle caps from just, soda bottles and all that stuff. Probably threw that away a long time ago. definitely collected like Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, baseball cards. Every now and then, if I'm feeling it, I'll go buy like, a rookie card, rookie baseball card, or, like when McDonald's 3 months ago was like, oh, hey, we're, introducing Pokemon cards that you can only get in Happy Meals. I wasn't trying to be a scalper or anything like some of these people out here buying 300 Happy Meals and all that stuff, trying to get all the collector's set of these cards and then selling them for, $50 each or whatever it was, which was crazy. I was just happy getting just one Happy Meal. I just wanted one card just to say that I was part of it. And like, it was very nostalgic in that sense, just because that was my childhood. So I wasn't like trying to go get every card, but it was one of those things. I was like, I'm gonna go buy a Happy Meal, get my 4 McNuggets and super tiny fries and apple juice and sliced apples or whatever they have in a Happy Meal now that's supposed to be healthier, and get my one pack of 3 cards or whatever it was, and just be happy with it. So that was something I collected when I was a kid: Pokemon cards, baseball cards, all that stuff, cards. I think I went through a stage when I was in middle school, high school, where I obviously collected shoes and hats. That has definitely slowed down. I don't do that as much. I'm still a sneakerhead, but I am definitely not a hype beast type of sneakerhead anymore. Those days are done. I don't need to buy shoes and flip shoes and all that stuff and have a collection of a crazy amount of shoes and sneakers. I still do get shoes, but not as often as I used to. I used to work at a shoe store, which was not good for that habit. My paycheck would just go to shoes and all that stuff. Always had to be the top, most new trending thing. But in all honesty, man, I don't know. Shoes these days, like they just don't slap like they used to. So I'm find myself
Right.
going back to classics like, Air Force Ones and all that
Right.
stuff that we had when we were kids anyways, that are still hot right now. So
Right.
stuff like that. I just, I don't find myself in the shoe game as much anymore. Hats, I'll still buy hats just because, I like it. I like a good hat, and, I wear my hats out sometimes. So I would say those are the things that I've collected over the years. I'm sure there's more toys of some sort, or certain things, or video games. That was a big thing. Now everything's digital.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. It's one of those things. I moved to digital video games a long time ago, but there are certain games or certain things that will come out and they might have a limited edition cover on it, and I'll go buy it. Like, the last one I can remember is, I think it was MLB The Show 16 for the PlayStation 4, and had Ken Griffey Jr. on it. That's just, Seattle Mariner on the cover. I was like, I have to go buy the physical copy of this game. I'll buy all my other games digital so I don't have to clutter my house with video games and discs and stuff. But that was just one I felt like I had to get, just because it had meaning. There was my favorite player of like pretty much all time on it. So I was like, all right, I gotta do
Right.
it.
Right. No, thanks, man. You bring up a lot of great points, and I wanted to piggyback off a few things you were saying earlier about shoes and Pokemon cards, for example, hats even. I don't collect any of those now. I was never a shoe head. I've never even owned a pair of Jordans before, and even though I wanted to, just never felt like I cared about shoes. I did care about other stuff, like in terms of style. But it's funny you brought that up, because nowadays when I see these hot trends happening, it's so easy to get it now as adults, because back when we were kids, we didn't have the money to do so. Now that we're adults, it's like, I got some play money to spend, shoot, I used to love Air Forces, right? I was like, you know what? I don't even wear, because I wear a lot of leather dress boots in general, Doc Martens, right? That I'm just a boot wearing guy. But when so I don't wear a lot of sneakers. But when I see a good Air Force Ones, I'm like, man, I used to love those when I was a kid. You know what? F it. I'm going to buy it right now because I can afford it, even though I shouldn't buy it, even though I'm barely going to wear it. But it's one of those things where you could buy it. Same thing with the Pokemon cards. I remember, man, I used to beg my mom when we go through the mall to get that. Man, I remember that fresh smell, when you open the packet. Oh, man, I love it. Kind of makes me want to go buy a packet now, but the cards don't look the same based on what I'm seeing on social media. The cards all look different.
Yeah.
And it kind of weirds me out because I love the nostalgia of the original. Probably, I mean, I haven't played Pokemon or know about Pokemon for so long. I know there's like thousands of different types of Pokemon now that we won't get into, but I'm talking about the original like 150 Pokemon. Back when Game Boy had red, blue, and sometimes yellow version. That I never played because I never played yellow because red and blue had that glitch that you could do at the side of the was that a volcano gym, and you get that missing no, and you could you could get like 1,000 master balls, if you do it correctly.
Yeah.
Yellow, I remember like they took away that glitch, so I don't know if they had it. But anyways, I digress. It's funny that you brought that up because it's like, man, I could afford those now, but do I want it? Or I've grown out of them, right? And so same with things that I collect currently. It's same with you, man. It's like Funko Pops. I collect books, as boring as that may sound, but it's like things that maybe as I get older as adults, those are things that mean a lot to me. And you brought up a good point earlier too, where you were like, hey, sometimes I collect magnets from places I travel. Because when, people come over or people see those magnets, they're like, hey, what's the story behind that? And that's what allows you to kind of tell those stories. So a lot of these stuff that I collect now as an adult are stuff that means a lot to me, like for example, books, right? Every book I read, I don't pick up a book, just to have it. There's a few collectibles, like, one of my favorite basketball players of all time, Kobe Bryant. I had to collect his one book. Unfortunately, I haven't cracked at it. It's more of like, paperweight, a little bit, but it's something that I had to have physically, right? Yeah, I think you have it back there. Funko Pops, if you see in most of the stuff I collect is things that kind of just touch a little bit on my childhood or things that I just vibe, with. So I won't buy necessarily a lot of things of Funko Pop or every single pop, but things that I'm like, you know what, that's something that I want as a visual reminder. That when I look at it, it gives me a good feeling, like, the good feelings I had when I first experienced whatever that reminded me of. And, so that's been an awesome thing too. Back when I was a kid, it was either Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right? And those are things I collected because it was like Pokemon, only because it's just the nostalgia or just the coolness of owning these things. And it almost felt like a competition, right? Even though I probably couldn't compete with adults at that time who would be able to get, multiple packs of stuff. It was kind of cool to be like, I worked to get this, right? Even though technically you weren't working to get it, because it's like your mom bought it for you, or at least my mom did, bought it for me. And you would get like 7 cards at a time out of each packet. So it was like luck anyway. So it's not like you're working hard to drill mine, a holographic Charizard, right? It's by luck. But it's one of those things where like I just loved it. Yu-Gi-Oh! I loved because it brought back nostalgia of like back, or at least our age, right, Tyler? Like before, everyone was on their phones and stuff. Like, we would call our crushes still via landline phones, where my mom would yell at me because I'm on it too long. Where we would bike outside a lot more till the sun goes down, and then where we would literally play Yu-Gi-Oh, the actual game, the battles on the sidewalks with friends, right? And so that kind of like was a cool thing to collect. And nowadays it's just nostalgia. If I come across it, one of these days I might just be like, F it, let me just buy a pack of Pokemon cards, even though I won't know, especially if it's a new pack, I won't know, who these Pokemon are, but it just kind of brings out the nostalgia that you mentioned and whatnot. So Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, and like I just collect things just because as an adult it becomes like a decor too, right? Like I'm not trying to expand it too much, but I'm trying to like collect like vinyls, right? Music vinyls, and just because it's just awesome to have, and they just make it so cool to collect. I mean, if you get like a Target exclusive one, I don't know if you've seen them, but like they for like Target exclusive vinyls, they like make the actual vinyl like a special color, and it's just cool. It's just like, man, I love that album. I gotta have it. So, but I'm not gonna go out and collect it. But there's a few albums that I know that I gotta have if it's on vinyl, because it's just like albums that I can listen to from beginning to end from my favorite artists. Like two in the top of my mind that I could think of, like our like rap albums. Like you gotta have Lauryn Hill, Miseducation, her only ever commercial album, amazing album from beginning to end. Commons B album, stuff like that. So, but there's things that just kind of like connects with me. It speaks to me. And so, kind of leading on that to the final question, Tyler, with kind of everything you mentioned, and you can kind of tie this to just generally to people overall, or maybe just personally to you. You know, even though you kind of mentioned it before about the stories you tell, but you know, what is it about these items that makes you want to hold and own them? Like, would you ever sell them, or like, what would it take for you to give away these items? Most cases, these are items we never want to give away. Not even for well, money can buy anything, but I'm not going to get into that. Like, what makes you want to hold and own these collectibles forever?
I think for me, it's the meaning behind the collectibles. I think, if I were to go through my collectibles now, mostly the Funko Pops. I think that the thing that I collect the most now, I think, honestly, I could probably get rid of the majority of them, honestly. But I would hold on to very specific ones. It still might look like I have a crazy collection, but I would grab on and gravitate towards certain ones because of the nostalgia or what they mean to me. So obviously, like, there's a couple behind me, the Harry the Husky. I would obviously keep those. Doesn't matter what the money or the value of them is. Money regarding all that stuff. Because, a lot of the collectibles, I think that people keep is because they're worth a lot of money. I think a lot of people also are like, oh, I'm only keeping it because it's worth a lot of money. But at the same time, they're like, I'm going to sell it one day, but they never sell it. They just hold on to it for whatever reason. It's just like, you can just say that, oh, I am one of the few that have this rare item. And I'm going to rub it in your face kind of thing. So I think for me, yeah, like, obviously, like I was saying, like the Harry the Husky ones, that means something to me because I graduated from the University of Washington. So those ones I'm going to keep. It doesn't matter what the price is. I'm not going to sell them. You can't put a price on them. So I wouldn't give those up. One of my favorite shows of all time, Avatar, the Last Airbender, is over there. Mickey Mouse is like one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time. Those are the ones I would keep. As much as I like Pokemon and as much as nostalgia that it brought to me, I tried to keep up with it, but now there's so many Pokemon they're releasing as far as Funko Pops go that I can't even keep up with those. So I'm just like, I don't necessarily need them. I only want the ones that really mean something to me. So, obviously there's one of myself. I'm not going to get rid of that one. I made that one. And things that are very specific to my likings, so sports figures, favorite comic book character or something like that. Like, looking at my collection, obviously they're not all here, but let's say I have what would you say, 350, 400 pops or whatever. Yeah. I could probably easily narrow that down to 100 if I were to go through all of them, kind of
right
thing, and really look through them. But as far as collections go, I think that's why we hold on to them. I think there's sentimental value on a lot of these things. I know Zavon, who's not here, would say the same thing, like, about our Ichiro Funko Pop. It just doesn't matter what's offered. Someone could offer me $1,000 on that thing, and I would not sell it. I would keep it because he just means a lot to me, in the sense of, like, one, he's like one of my heroes, being an Asian baseball player. During that time, not many Asian baseball players existed. And he was kind of a trendsetter, and kind of was the first person to give, a lot of kids, Asian baseball players, growing up, something to look forward to, like a hero of some sort. Obviously, I'm not going to sell that, because that means a lot to me in a different way. So just one of those things. I think that's what a lot of the collections comes down to. I think if you were to ask people, could you part with this? A lot of people would say no at first, but I think the more and more they think about it, there's certain things that they would hold on to, more than others. I think that a lot of the things that, as far as collectibles go, like, if someone bought me something, I feel like I'm more obligated to keep it, even though I may not like the thing necessarily. It just kind of depends on what it is. But if it's something that was gifted to me, I would lean towards keeping that over something that I bought myself, just because it was kind of a gift from somebody. They may not have gotten the thing that you love the most, but it was the thought behind the gift as well. So I think that's what it really comes down to when collections come and go, just what they mean to you as a person. That's why I think people hold on to certain things more or longer than other things, is because there's just that emotional tie to it, that you've grown to love it over the years. It may sit on a shelf in plain sight for 20 years or whatever the heck it might be, but you can't come to terms with getting rid of it, because it just, one, the nostalgia, two, just the love of it. And then, there's just so many things that are involved with it. For instance, I have a stuffed animal that I was given when I was a baby. It's a Mickey Mouse doll. And, I've had plenty of stuffed animals over my lifetime that were either given to me, I bought, or whatever. But he is one of the things that I'll never give up. He looks super ragged now. He's over 30 years old, super ragged. He has holes. I've had to do a bunch of patchwork on him. My grandma did patchwork on him. It's one of those things you're almost afraid to, like, do a deep clean on him, because you might fall apart, kind of thing. It's just something that has special meaning to me. So that's one of those things. I can get rid of all these other things. People give me stuffed animals or whatever. Now my sister she does that to me all the time. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. It's going to sit in a corner. I'm going to give it to a kid at some point. But yeah, there's just some things that you just can't give up. Like my Mickey Mouse doll, I'm not going to give that up. Probably just going to put that in a display case at some point, just to kind of say, like, that was my first ever stuffed animal. And that's the thing that got me through my childhood. So stuff like that. It's just, I think, the stuff that has a deeper meaning to it, that emotional tie to it. I think that's why a lot of Americans are big hoarders, and creates a lot of clutter, because they can't necessarily cut ties to a lot of those things, as we've talked about before, and how to be a minimalist, minimizing the things you have in your life. Obviously, there are things that we're very tied to, but there's not necessarily everything that we're tied to of the same thing. So these collections, although very large at some points, like we said, if you were to really think about it and you only were able to keep certain ones, I think most people would be able to make that decision. I'll be tough, but I think people could come to terms with letting certain things go. I think it just depends on what they really mean to that person.
Right. Nice, man. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else I could say. You kind of hit it right on the head. Honestly, things we collect, if you really think about it, it's just an introspection of ourselves. Portrayed onto these physical items or these things that we collect. It's just putting us a little reflection of ourselves, right, in the physical. And so that's why we do it. And you're right. You can buy many things, but some things are just priceless, right? Like if we were, end of the world, you had that Ichiro, and it's the end of the world, and you had to give up that Ichiro for bread and cheese and milk. You'll probably keep the Ichiro. I don't know, but that's an extreme case. But it's one of those things that sometimes holding on to dearly, things that just means a lot more to us, is a lot more than things we could describe. And that's just us. It could, everyone has their own threshold of what of what things mean to them, and what holds on to them. So that's it for tonight. I mean, Tyler, is there any final words you want to say on the topic?
Collect what you want to collect, I guess. But just know at some point in your life, you'll probably start to grow or phase out of certain collections, and that's okay. There might be a couple of them that you want to keep, but whatever it is, just make sure to not overdo it, I guess. Don't become a hoarder, I guess. But enjoy
your definition of hoarder.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. So that's it for tonight. As always, we challenge our listeners. Hey, take this question, start that mental exercise with it. It's summertime. If possible, get in front of a bonfire safely with friends and family. Again, all safe. We're not health experts. Do what you got to do to stay safe. And so, but marinate over this question, see how it applies to your own life. It definitely applies to, we believe, a lot of people's lives. I mean, we all collect something, one another, whether it's a physical item or whether, it's collecting memories. Those are all forms of collections on the spiritual or mental level. But most importantly, it's one of those things like we like to end it with, man. Just keep the dialogue going. We're not perfect. No one is perfect. We know that we're not where we want to be, especially on this podcast, but it's one of those things where we stay consistent, keep at it, keep working at it, keep trying to make it better, but ultimately keeping the dialogue going. It's one of those things that makes our stories, your legacy, what it is sharing our stories with one another and getting it out there. Because by talking to one another, by sharing our stories, that's how we continue to learn and grow, right? So appreciate the listen. Appreciate the feedback. We will see y'all next week. This is Our Stories, Your Legacy, another episode of Real Talk. Have a good night.
Later.